Hi there, Jackie Ray here, co-founder of Yoga Veda Institute and creator of Sister Science, a course designed to introduce you to the world of Ayurvedic healing. Today we wrap up our Sister Science course with some important information on Ayurvedic yoga therapy, how it works, and why it's important for us as yoga teachers to include Ayurveda in our practices, our teachings, and in our lives. Dr. David Frawley is one of the modern leaders in the field of Ayurvedic yoga therapy. In his various publications, he shares the importance of bringing Ayurveda back into the practice of yoga as therapy. He tells us that the Ayurvedic view of our embodied nature, body, mind, and soul, how it works, the causes of disease, and the treatment of disease are all connected together in a beautiful, clear, and wonderful system of optimal health and total well-being. Ayurveda addresses all aspects of medicine, including diet, herbs, drugs and surgery, body work, and its own special clinical procedures like panchakarma. It brings in ritual and mantra and meditation for healing the mind. In addition, it provides lifestyle recommendations for health, longevity, and disease prevention, as well as special methods for rejuvenation of body and mind. Ayurveda includes the practices of yoga from asanas and pranayama to mantra and meditation as part of its wonderful healing tools. We do not find any therapy sections in the usual yoga texts. The term chikitsa, or therapy, does not occur in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and is not a major topic of concern in yoga philosophy. This is because the concern of classical yoga is sadhana, or practice, not chikitsa, or therapy. This is regarded as the field of Ayurveda. Most importantly, we do not find in yoga texts a discussion of disease or pathology, diagnosis, or treatment strategies apart from the approach of Ayurveda. There is no yoga system of medicine in terms of diagnosis, pathology, or treatment apart from Ayurveda. What we do find commonly in yoga texts are discussions of the pranas, the senses, the mind, the nadis, and the chakras, the worship of deities, and discussion of the inner self and nature of consciousness, as well as the types of samadhi or inner absorption. Disease is addressed briefly in some yoga texts as it is regarded as one of the main obstacles to yoga practice. But when this does occur, the language of Ayurveda is usually used. Modern yoga has defined itself primarily in terms of asanas, or the physical postures. These are usually taught in huge classes for people primarily seeking physical well-being. We commonly identify yoga teachers as those who conduct asana classes. Some of these yoga teachers may have some knowledge of the greater system of classical yoga. However, yoga therapy or yoga chikitsa is a new, popular, and powerful movement in yoga today that is still trying to define itself and its scope of application. For the most part, modern yoga therapy consists primarily of an adaptation of asanas or asana styles to treat disease and to improve health. But this view of yoga is very different from and a reduced version of classical yoga that's defined primarily in terms of a spiritual practice and deep meditation. So if we're practicing yoga therapy, the question is, to what system of medicine does that therapy apply? Modern yoga therapy largely consists of the application of yoga asanas as physical therapy for the treatment of disease. These yoga therapists are not necessarily doctors or primary health care providers, but function more like a technician applying the techniques of asana as guided by a doctor or nurse. There is nothing wrong with this approach, and much benefit comes from it. However, yoga therapy as asana therapy does not unfold the full healing potential of classical yoga and its many methods. The term yoga itself means to unite, to combine, to harmonize, or integrate. A truly yogic approach is inherently an integrative approach, harmonizing body, prana, senses, the mind, and consciousness. It cannot be reduced to the body alone. A yogic approach to healing is not a specialization or a sideline technique, but requires a synthesis of all levels and aspects of healing. That is why classical yoga has an eightfold approach from lifestyle practices and values through asana, pranayama, all the way to samadhi. If we reduce yoga to asana, we're not practicing yoga or an integrative approach, but we're falling into the same trap of mainly focusing on the outer material reality and losing track of the inner reality of prana, mind, and consciousness. A real yoga therapy must consider all 8 limbs of yoga. It cannot just isolate the physical aspects of yoga like asana. Otherwise, it is caught in the same type of physical reductionism that too often occurs in modern medicine. In this way, not only asana has an important therapeutic application, but all of the limbs of yoga. The first 2 limbs of the 8 limbs of yoga, the yamas and niyamas, the yogic principles and practices of right living, provide the foundation necessary to sustain any spiritual or healing practice. They also provide an ideal code of conduct for doctors, therapists, and yoga teachers. We call asana the external medicine of yoga. It primarily treats musculoskeletal disorders, but indirectly can benefit many other conditions and can provide an ideal form of exercise for everyone. Yet, as we already know, without proper diet, its healing potentials are limited, as bodily activity is going to reflect the nutrition the body receives. Asana works best in the context of Ayurvedic dietary and lifestyle recommendations. Pranayama can be called the internal medicine of yoga. It brings prana, or vital energy, directly into the body and can be used to direct prana in various ways as needed. Pranayama directly impacts the doshas, or biological humors of Ayurveda, vata, pitta, and kapha, which are modifications of prana. Pranayama primarily treats conditions of the respiratory and circulatory and nervous systems, but through these has a powerful impact on all physical and psychological conditions. Pranayama is a great aid for the use of herbs and functions much like them to correct the movements of energy within our physiological and psychological systems. As all forms of healing involve altering the movement of prana and increasing the healing power of prana, pranayama is a primary and direct form of healing the body and the mind, whereas asana is secondary and indirect. This means that a real yoga therapy, even for the physical body, must emphasize pranayama over asana and employ asana in the context of pranayama. Pratyahara is the internalization of energy necessary for deep healing or for true meditation to occur. If we have not reached the stage of pratyahara, we are still not really practicing yoga as a sadhana or a spiritual practice. In pratyahara, one withdraws the prana and the mind within. For real healing, the body and the mind must be put in a relaxed state and the energy directed within. Many forms of treatment like massage or panchakarma are largely simulated forms of pratyahara, putting the patient into a condition of deep rest in which all toxins can be removed from the body. Concentration of mind and the development of the power of attention required to sustain any healing practice is reflective in meditation, the inner balance of awareness which allows the mind to heal itself. Samadhi is the unitary state of mind, prana, and awareness that develops the full healing power of body and mind and releases us from physical, emotional, and spiritual suffering. These higher aspects of yoga aid in providing the right attitude and state of mind for healing to take place on every level. The internal practices of yoga are primarily for treating the mind and used in Ayurveda mainly for dealing with psychological disorders. This means that classical yoga therapy is primarily a psychology employing mantra and meditation. Yoga, as applied according to Ayurveda, is one of the most powerful approaches for healing the mind and emotions that is available in the world today. It is so important to reintegrate yoga and Ayurveda in order to bring out the full healing and spiritual potential of each. Bringing Ayurveda and yoga provides a yogic and Vedic system of medicine to allow for the full healing application of all aspects of yoga. It provides a diagnosis and treatment that's in harmony with yoga philosophy, as well as a diet and herbal treatment that follows the spiritual approach of yoga. Bringing yoga into Ayurveda adds a spiritual and psychological dimension to Ayurvedic treatment, without which Ayurveda tends to get reduced to a physical model in which its full Vedic healing powers cannot be fully realized. Ayurveda provides the appropriate lifestyle recommendations for yoga practice, as well as the background to unfold the full healing potential of all aspects of yoga. Yoga provides the spiritual and psychological basis for Ayurveda and its higher applications. For a truly holistic and spiritual approach to medicine and healing, we need both yoga and Ayurveda. But with Ayurveda providing the medical foundation and yoga the spiritual goal and practices. This is the original Vedic scheme. This reconnection of yoga and Ayurveda will also provide the basis for a real dialogue with modern medicine, addressing not only specific therapies, but also the real cause of disease and how to maintain health and well-being in society. This means that we need to do some rethinking as to the nature of Ayurveda and yoga healing as therapy. There are so many resources for us to draw on in both Ayurveda and yoga, particularly in the classical texts. We should examine the ancient literature of yoga and Ayurveda for this purpose and look to those teachers who combine both together, especially deeper applications of pranayama, pratyahara, mantra, and meditation. At the same time, we should examine yoga's connection with other Vedic sciences, including not only Ayurveda, but Vedic astrology, Vastu, as well as music. We should explore the healing potentials not only of Hatha and Raha Yoga, but also of Bhakti, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Combining yoga and Ayurveda in their full application and in the greater context of Vedic science offers a complete system of well-being for body, mind, and consciousness. It can become the prime force of planetary healing that is so desperately needed today. It can add a spiritual and preventative dimension to modern medicine, as well as adding important new keys for understanding of disease and for applying natural therapies that can reduce the growing cost of high-tech medicine. When we begin to incorporate Ayurveda into our teachings and into our lives, we're offering our students a system of mind-body medicine that has the potential to change lives far beyond the scope of asana alone. As yoga teachers, we have the opportunity to share Ayurveda with our communities, with our friends, with our families, and with the world. As yoga teachers, we're on the forefront of this amazing system of yogic healing. I'd love to hear from you today, so please pop on over into our Sister Science Facebook group and share with us all of your plans on how you're going to begin to share Ayurveda with your community. I can't wait to hear your insights. I want to thank you all for being such a wonderful part of Yoga Veda's Sister Science program. And until next time, namaste.